Hey guys, John Lux here. So this is going to be, a rambling review of Prey, but also basically episode 7 of our playthrough. So here's some footage and stuff from the Steam page on the back. Or, I don't know why it's in French. It's an English page, but so Prey was released in 2017 by Arcane Studios, published by Bethesda. Mr. Jack, you are adorable. And excuse me. If you don't watch anything else in the video, would I recommend the game? The answer is no. Now, Prey has some fans, and I'm sure I'm going to get downvoted and, ratioed or whatever the hell. But because those that love this game love this game, but even those that love this game will say that they had to play it. They had to pick it up and put it down and re-pick it back up a few times before it finally clicked for them. And maybe it's like some kind of Stockholm syndrome, because on average, the game is rated about a 7 out of 10. And that's a fair rating. It might even be too high. And allow me to explain, because let's go over kind of the general review areas. Wow, these things are short. Can I zoom in? No, is that what we're doing? Okay, whatever. Story's bad. Story's bad. None of it matters at the end. And even if you were to disregard the ending and go off of what's presented while you're playing the game, there's really almost no story. It's weak. It's poorly paced. It's really hard to say if there's even an antagonist at all. And the motivations behind the characters don't make sense. Your conveyance of what you're supposed to do to progress the story, thank God there's quest markers and actually like a quest log, because how would you have known that you had to rap on a window to talk to a girl that in the future will unlock a door for you so you're no longer trapped? It's pretty convenient, and it's an ass pull, that, I'm not going to say it looks good. Overall, it looks good. The graphics are fine. There's there's still some bugs and stuff, but overall the game itself looks good. But the story is bad. Story's bad. Characters are bad. Enemies are bad. And when I say enemies are bad, I mean there are basically only 3 enemies. There's a blob that looks like a spider, a blob that looks like a man, and a blob, and there's multiple of each, right? There's multiple blobs that look like spiders, multiple blobs that look like men, and then multiple blobs that just look like blobs. And for me, also level design. Let's say level design, also not good. Fans of the game will say that level design is fantastic because there's rooms with multiple ways to get into them. From, one of your weapons is a Nerf crossbow, and you can break the window and then peek around and look at the switch and shoot the switch of the crossbow to open the locked door so that you don't have to use a key card, or you could find a key card. And that is what fans of the game will call good level design. Now, many people, of course, will be more reasonable, but by and large, that's basically what it is. Now, combat is bad also. That's another big thing. The first weapon is a wrench, and the second is a glue gun that basically stuns enemies or glues them in place. And it's almost just faster just to run up to them with a wrench and just whack them with the wrench. Especially once you get upgrades, there's no point to even using that. And then, to be fair, The animations look good, and the monsters respond pretty much in how you would expect them to, which is for them to not sit there and let you whack them with a wrench. They jump around, they dodge, they teleport away. But it's a huge pain in the ass to fight them because they're constantly moving, and I'm pretty sure I was hitting them a lot of the time, and they just weren't taking damage. I don't know if I hit them, if it was a bug, if I hit them mid animation or what. Um, Ultimately, though, this is a game that has some really fantastic ideas, but they're misused. They're misused and they're executed poorly, and I don't know if that's because of, um, let's just call it the woke thing. Like, this is when the woke thing started being really big, and I don't know. I've heard Arcane are just not great developers anyway. Like, games they make are kind of sloppy. Like, good ideas but poor execution is kind of their thing, which fits with Bethesda uh, as their publisher. But oh my God, was that you? That was that was a rough one, Jack. Oh, and this is fake footage. God damn, that is bad. Anyway, wow. Just um wow, you made me lose my train of thought. So when you hire woke people, in when you hire for diversity instead of hiring merit, and merit's a dirty word, let's go with talent. When you hire for, racial statistics or whatever instead of talent, then you're gonna get what you get. Then you're not gonna get the best. And so I don't know if that was because of that, or maybe they pulled like a Bioshock Infinite and changed the game during development. I don't know, but it seems like there's a lot of ideas that were incorporated poorly. For example, the actual ending. It actually makes a lot of sense, especially with the psychology test in the beginning and the fact that the prey monsters look a lot like the Inkblot tests, right? But that's not conveyed properly. And I don't know if development was rushed or they ran out of time. And maybe I'm trying to steel man the arguments, right? Where because the first thing you do is you're basically told to blow up the station when you haven't even really, you can already tell it's a lost cause, right? Because there's no one around, everybody presumably is dead. um, but that said, you've only been in like one or two of the game's areas. There shouldn't be a real, it shouldn't be like, okay, yeah, we have to blow up the station, the situation is lost. It's like, you haven't shown that. You really have not shown that. And then especially, Alex, potentially the main antagonist of the game, his motivations, especially from the beginning, make no sense. There's no need, like, he's trying to stop you from moving around the station and lock you in place, but how is that going to solve the monsters? It's not. So, and just as another example, just because I'm trying to be relatively quick and less rambly than normal, two examples. One, the wrench. Okay. Also, the marketing materials. Right. Look at these marketing materials. They make it look like BioShock, like an action shooter, like a action game with horror flavoring, right? They don't make it look like, I wouldn't even call it survival horror. I would almost call it, um what does the Metal Gear series go by? Tactical action. Obviously not tactical espionage action, but I would say it's a tactical action game because you have to sneak around. Kind of stealth is also does not work. That's another flaw. It's basically just line of sight with the occasional noise. Um, and it's kind of pointless most of the time anyway, because you have to go through areas that are like choke points that the enemies are placed at. You know, but it looks like an action shooter when really it's more of a tactical game, managing your resources. You know, even choosing like an alternate route in, what was it, the data center. You can go down through the floor, but it just passes a door that you can already open. It doesn't get you past the threat that's in the next room. So it's like, you know, that was bad, Mr. Jack. That was really terrible. You should be proud and ashamed. Um, so so the wrench, kind of fitting in with that, with the marketing materials, and why I think maybe it was changed during development, or maybe people didn't understand. Uh, when you first pull the wrench out, you flip it. Every time you pull it out, it's not, you're you can judge a character based on their actions, right? Is the character happy or sad or whatever? It's nonverbal communication. So when the character pulls out a wrench and then flips it, that's like happy, energetic, joyful, whatever. It's a wrench. He's not, I mean, I think he technically is an engineer of some kind, but he's not going to use it to fix pipes. He's going to use it to whack monsters. And so him being happy is like, I'm going to use this to bash monsters with, but that's not what you really should be doing. Um, and then, you know, even the whole like idle animation, you're just like sitting there and just whacking your palm with it. Like that's, you're communicating the wrong message from the get-go. The foundationals of the game are communicating that the game is more of an action. That's why what I'm saying is I'm making the case for why people bounce off the game so hard. Not just bad marketing, but also the fundamentals of the game itself, right? And when I say the Prey fans are fanatics, at least many of them, I was just on the subreddit, like trying to figure out why the hell I bounced off the game so hard. And there's a person that is still mad about a review that was posted 8 years ago for the game. When the dude even bent over backwards, the reviewer, Dan Stapleton or something, he bent over backwards to give the game a good score, and he had a game breaking bug. He could not progress. And Bethesda, like, I guess he got one of the review codes, and Bethesda just blew him off. Oh, it's not a big deal, whatever. It's like, dude, this is one of your, I mean, I assume the dude's a major reviewer. Like, so this is going to be part of your marketing, and you're just saying, whatever, it's fine. Don't blame the guy. Blame, first off, you shouldn't be sending out review codes that have game breaking bugs in them. You know, if it needs a little more polish, then it needs a little more polish. You know what I mean? But also, he delayed his review till a week after launch to give them time to fix it, and they didn't. So he was going to give it an 8 until the game broke, and then he's like, well, I cut my score in half. I gave it a 4 because I can't actually finish the game. And people are mad at him about that instead of being mad at Bethesda. But, you know, autism's a hell of a drug, I guess. The other thing that I'd like to mention is as far as misuse, misappropriation, whatever, is the monsters. The monsters themselves, specifically the mimic. Okay, let me take a drink real fast. The mimic is probably the coolest monster in the game. It is, on paper, it's fantastic. It takes the shape of things in the station. The game is supposed to be tense. You know, so it should, in theory, put you in the mindset of you're always in danger. You're never safe. You have to walk into a room and assess what objects are fake or not. Or are there any mimics? You know, because the mimics take, you know, coffee cup. They turn into a coffee cup or a chair or whatever. They transform into things in the environment. And so In theory, like I said, that should make the game incredibly tense. Um, but it screws up everything in a couple of ways. The first of which is they're everywhere. They're in every freaking room. Oh, see, the coffee cup was shaking right there. Can I rewind that a little bit? Did he move? Unless he's drinking a second cup and he just put it down. He's like, screw this cup. It's empty. Give me a new one. But I think that cup was shaking as it was a mimic. But they're just everywhere. You walk into a room, you're walking through a room, these things just bust out of everything. They you know, they come at you. They don't even, you get close to them and they, attack. And it's just like after very quickly the sense of tension was lost for me, and I just sort of accepted that I'm always going to constantly be attacked, right? So it destroys the tension from the get-go. Once more enemies come in later in the game, then that becomes less of a problem and mimics are less frequent. But until then, it's like it's your only enemy, and it's everywhere. It reduces the novelty of it, Also, the fact that it's such a unique enemy, it's the first enemy, so you're basically setting it as the mook, right? First enemy in the Souls games are typically the weakest ones, the hollow peasant or whoever who has like a broken sword, no armor, and they just run up and they're like right? And you do that not just to give you an introduction to the game, but also to set sort of the baseline. You want to set the baseline for the monsters in the game, right? And in the case of the peasant, it's the weakest one. It can still kill you, but it's weak. So you're setting the foundation, the bar here, and then every enemy encountered after that raises the bar. What you don't want to do is set the bar up here and then have every enemy after that be a disappointment, which is, I would argue, basically what they did, right? You have this mimic that's cool as hell. Yes, there are other enemies that are almost as cool. Technopath, for example. Is that what it's called? Whatever. Anyway, even the nightmare is worse. But the mimic is the coolest, and then every enemy is below that. And so you get, and you're like, oh, this enemy's not as good. Oh, that enemy's not as good. And, so you waste the mimic, and then enemies after that are worse. And it's not just that. It's like the enemy after that is a phantom, which is a generic man-looking creature. And then the third enemy you fight after that is basically a palette swap of the phantom. So it's like coolest enemy, lame enemy, lamer enemy because it's a palette swap, and then you go from there, and you're just like, so already you kind of set you set the foundation. It's like if you're getting a 5-course meal, your first couple courses, if they're not good, if they're mediocre or generic, you're not going to have a great rest of the time. You walk into a nice dinner and they're like, here's your glass, and it's got like lipstick on it. You're just going to be like, yeah, I don't think this is going to be a good experience. I think maybe I'm done, right? And that's, I think, how Prey is for most people. They're just not going to give it another chance, right? Those that do bounce off and go back, usually, apparently, at least the ones on the subreddit, have a great time. But how many just bounce off and never go back? Like, that would have been me had I not forced myself to keep going, which the title should be about psychological reactance as well. Thought it was kind of appropriate given that they wanted this game to be psychology. Oh, also, just real fast, I understand the monsters, right? The monsters are supposed to be like formless and shapeless because, the unknown is what's the most terrifying. but they lack detail, and as a result of that, they're boring. I can't help that. It's just, you see something, it's like black goo, another monster made out of black goo. Oh, another monster, also black goo. Like they're just all made out of black goo. So, yeah. And the glue gun, kind of a cool idea, but you know. So, story bad, combat bad, weapons. I didn't really talk about them, but they're basically bad. They're again great ideas, but just poor execution. Monsters are bad. Level design is bad. It's just now I did mention at the beginning this is like episode 7 of the Prey playthrough because I'm going to go through it again now that I've finished it. It's going to be still a semi-blind playthrough because I didn't read any of the emails. And I'm sure I didn't experience most of the story because I murdered everybody at my first opportunity. Unless they were going to open a door for me or something, they got killed straight away. Okay. Psychological reactance. That is I'm not a psychologist, but I've been trying to figure out why lately most of the games I've been playing I just dislike. Because I most recently got a PS5 and I'm like, let me get this, because these are all games that everyone recommends. And I start playing it, I'm like, I hate it. Start playing Prey because everyone's gushing about how great this game is. Start playing it, I hate it. Start playing some other game, I hate it. And I'm just like, what is going on? And so psychological reactance, or just reactance, is it's basically anger, but it's anger at your choice being taken away. Choice, freedoms, you're getting obligations put upon you. That's what reactance is. Anger itself is a defensive emotion. It's basically, hey, stop screwing with me. And that's what reactance is. It's anger from my choices being removed. It's a bit like you go and you're cleaning up your room, and then your mom or dad or whoever walks in and they're like, oh, it's about time you cleaned that up. And instantly you don't want to do it anymore. Because you're doing it of your own volition at first, and then they walk in and they put something on you. And then now you're like, well, now I don't want to do it. It's a reaction, right? Similar to stuff like this. This is why when people are like, oh my God, it's the best game ever, and you play it, and it's not being contrarian. That's different. That's just dislike. That's being a hipster, basically, right? It's not cool because everyone likes it. But reactance is sort of the obligation that people put on you, and you are resisting that, right? So there's different causes. There's obviously some of it's genetic, right? Some people just have a higher or lower threshold to the anger. But it also has to do with, say like abuse, or have you been in situations where you don't have a lot of control, and so it's a desire to retain control. So, in the case of Prey, everyone's like, oh my God, it's the best game ever. And then you play it, and especially when it actually does have legitimate causes, or sorry, not causes, flaws. When it has legitimate flaws and people ignore those, right? Because there are people, especially on that subreddit, that were like, hey, I understand why people don't like it. Like, I love it, I think it's amazing, but here are the reasons why people don't or wouldn't like it. And they get shouted down by the fans because it's either it's good or it's bad. There's no nuance. If people were more nuanced in their approach, they'd be like, hey, whatever, it has flaws, but once you get past those, it's really great. Um, or if you think this game has a good story, if you really like story, if you're dependent upon story, you're not going to like this game, or whatever. Just actual yes, Mr. Crazy, or actual fair criticism, right? So reactance, I think, is part of the reason that I bounced off this game hard, and you know, it's just one aspect, right? I wish I was going to go more into about it, but we are running out of time a bit, and especially having played through the game, it's not because I was thinking about reactance from the beginning, and then I basically forced myself to play through, and I will say I was angry. I was experiencing that reactance for about the last 3 days. So about 10 hours of took me about 26 hours to get through the game. And about 10 or so hours I was angry. I was like, why do I have to do this? Blah blah blah. But for me, it was like people say this game's amazing, and if I drop it now, I have so many games in my backlog, I'm not going to give this another chance. And even if I do, first impressions are forever. It's like, oh, this game that I hated that I abandoned, should I go back to that, or should I go to another game that I haven't tried? And I'd probably choose the other game rather than a game that I've already experienced that I know is bad, right? I just wish people had said for this one, and we'll see. We'll see on my next playthrough if maybe I'll like it more, but I wish people had said like, hey, the first just any nuance, any criticism rather than, oh my god, it's the best game ever. I don't know. But yeah, I really can't say if you're experiencing psychological reactance, I can't really say like how you would fix that. I mean, for honestly, I think the best thing would be that nuance. Would be like, hey, these are the game's flaws. You deflate the game, you give it an out. Because if a person's like, this game is amazing and I'm not enjoying it, they're setting themselves in opposition. But if you're making it more neutral, then I think that'll reduce their reactance to it. That would be my guess. Online, people are like, oh, don't tell yourselves that you have to do something. Say that you get to do something. It's like, to me, that's worse because I hate being manipulated. It's like, oh, I don't have to rake these leaves. I get to rake them. Whoa. You know what I mean? There are plenty of good things about this game, but yeah, as far as the things that matter, it definitely has flaws. Um, and I think the fanaticism around the game definitely does not help. Oh yeah, those things too, right? As far as mishandling ideas, the neuromods. You walk into the lobby and I'm getting attacked by mimics while January is talking, and I'm like, wait, what did he say? What was that? Can I go back and listen to what he said? No, as far as I know, there's no way to do that. But I knew that he mentioned the neuromods, and I'm looking, and right in front of me is a fountain, and I'm like, where was he saying? He's like straight ahead. I'm like, that's a fountain, and then I'm like, oh, he means on the second floor in the back. That's straight ahead. You could see the display from where you enter. And then you get this thing, and it's basically like you've seen in the thing. It's spikes that you jam into your eyeball to give you powers. And the first power you get is an extra 15 health. Or, your med kits do another 50% healing. Now I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, right? Because you can get the leverage, you can get the first leverage ability to move boxes, but it's the smallest of the heavy boxes, and there's very few of them, at least where you're at. So basically, they set this thing up. It's your first power, right? Oh my god, it's going to be amazing, and it's basically useless. You compare that to something like BioShock, which this game has drawn all these inspirations from other games. I mean, this game is basically System Shock 2. I mean, this game is very much a love letter to System Shock 1 and 2. From the shape of the station to um well, I don't want to spoil it, but kind of the Typhon themselves and the are very similar to the many, right? Some of the ending stuff is pretty cool. That's all I'm gonna say. But in Bioshock, you get the plasmid and you inject yourself with a syringe, which is horrifying as well, and then it lets you shoot lightning. So immediately it gives you some kind of reward, some sort of positive feedback, as opposed to you do this thing and it gives you a cutscene. Well, sort of, yeah, you're stabbing yourself in the eyeball. Gives you a little cutscene, and then your health just goes from this to this, just a little bit, just a little sliver of health. I use that because it's the lamest one. Like I said, there's a couple things, but it's just underwhelming. That's the problem. Everything this game does, like was it deliberate? Was it deliberate self-sabotage? Did someone short sell the company stock and they deliberately try to tank the game, to tank the studio so that they could bet against it in the stock market? I mean, that's a hell of a move if that's the case, but or whoever, did they just want to drive the company down so they could purchase it at a cheaper price or something? I have no idea. It almost seems deliberate. It really is astonishing to me that it was that all these things are so anti what the game was. But like I said, maybe it was cut short in development. Maybe it was rushed. Maybe they hired for diversity instead of talent. I don't know, but that's the thing. And does it help that psychological reactance is a thing? No. Does it help that people are told this game is amazing and they go in and it has legitimate flaws? No, that does not help. So I mean, I guess sort of my pseudo recommendation, because I still, like I said, to the average person, the average gamer, I would not recommend the game. Average people are just not going to like this. Especially if you're going in expecting something. Someone going in just seeing this, would but you don't even have to see it. Just on how he picks up the wrench and flips it and all that stuff. That sets the tone for what it's setting the wrong expectations. But if you really like System Shock 2, and man, that's the other thing, right? That game had all kinds of personality. The zombies coming at you, where they're like, kill me, as they're trying to kill you. All sorts of variety and different things. And with the mimics, you can't tell where they are really, because there's garbage everywhere and the game is so visually busy, it's just hard to tell. I don't know. Like I said, I'm going to play through it again and maybe I'll enjoy it more the second time around, which is what people do. But yeah. So see, we're already at like 35 minutes and I was trying to be fast. I was like, 10 minutes, we're almost done with this, we're doing good. But no. But anyway, I wanted to make these images full screen instead of having them tiny like this, but they don't automatically go to the next one if you make it full screen, and the images don't move either. They're just bigger. They don't even go full screen, so it's whatever. Hello, Mr. Jack. Are you here to fart on my lap again? Anyway, that is all that is all for today. Let me know what you guys think. Like I said, I'm expecting that Prey fanatics are gonna ratio this, downvote me into oblivion, and whatever. And if you want to see my initial reaction to the game, that's the first 6 episodes where I basically, it's not quite rage quitting, but I'm clearly not enjoying it, and I stop to ramble several times, and I'm just like, so the first like probably 2 or 3 hours of the game, I drag my feet because I'm not having fun, and I drag it into 6. So you can check that out if you want. If not, that's cool. If you don't watch anything else, that's cool. Like I said, to the average person, I would not recommend Prey. If you're really, really desperate for another, it's not even as, I will freely admit I didn't care for System Shock 2 too much. Maybe the same reason. Maybe because people are like, oh my god, it's the best game ever. And then I play it and I'm like, eh. Whether it's overhyped or whether that's actual psychological reactance, I couldn't tell you. But I thought System Shock 2 was just okay. And then I thought Prey was worse. And the scores, I mean, you can't go off scores, but that's what other people seem to think as well. And so if you're desperate, if you've played System Shock 2 to death, backwards and forwards, and you need something that is kind of like it, then sure, Prey's a good one. For anybody else, I'd say no. And there's a lot more flaws that I could have, like the stuff happening as you're looking somewhere else because they don't want to make it a cutscene, but they want it to be in the environment, but they're directing your attention somewhere else. Like you're going down the stairs, and so you're deliberately, at least for me, because you're assessing for threats, as you're going down the stairs, you're looking at the stairs. And it was only because I happened to look up and to the right? Because you follow your stairs, your line of sight. You follow the stairs to look, and it went to the left to see what's there, to see where you're going. Meanwhile, up here to the right, part of the system or part of the station is like exploding. And I just happened to look back up and, oh, okay. Maybe it should have happened earlier as I was approaching the stairs, because then it would have been straight ahead and I would have seen it explode and then been like, okay, and then I can go down the stairs. Just mishandling these things. Although I thought the apartment sequence was pretty cool. Anyway. But like I said, that's it for today, guys. Thank you guys so much for your time and attention. Really do appreciate it. Really hope you guys are enjoying these episodes. Leave me a comment, leave me a like or a dislike. I kind of feel like this one flowed a little bit better, and it was hopefully a little bit less rambly than almost all of my other ones. But let me know. Like I said, I'm gonna get some hate for this one, I think. But I am planning to play the game again, so we'll see. But yeah, that's it. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you guys next time. Till then, guys, take care.